Hello, I'm MrShine, back once more for the conclusion of my Paladin arena run. In my previous arena video, I drafted a Paladin that was lacking in true silvers in early game, but made up for it with 3 Blessing of Kings and a pretty decent assortment of high quality minions. If you haven't seen it yet, I suggest first watching it here, so you can yell at your monitor or viewing device when I made drafting decisions you didn't agree with. This sort of emotional investment is important so that you can gain a deep sense of smug satisfaction over seeing one of my decks fail when put to the test. However, I'm sorry to disappoint all you suckers who enjoy watching a train wreck, because this deck was able to go the distance, ending with a 12-2 record. Yes, it took an entire season of arena quizzes, but I was finally able to snag a 12-win run on one of them, and I must say the fact it was this deck did surprise me. The deck seemed to have a rather weak early game, which many times can be a killer for even the greatest of decks. I also had just 1 consecration, so if I lost the early game, there was a reasonable chance I wouldn't have my board clear in time to reset things. Finally, I was very reliant on Blessing of Kings since I had 3 of them in my deck, which means if my opponent was religiously removing my board, my deck would likely get bogged down with the 4 mana buff, and I'd be forced to play it on a minor minion on a turn it comes into play instead of being able to buff the attack during the same turn. In fact, I ended up starting the run 4-2 before I was able to rattle off an 8-game win streak to push me through to the finish line. If I got off to a bad start in any of those games, there was a very real possibility this deck would not have gotten to 12, or even 7. I'm going to be keeping this video a bit shorter than previous wrap-up videos, mainly because Goblins vs. Gnomes have come out, so the arena is now a bit different with some new cards thrown into the mix. So the video may be partially outdated before it even gets published. Sorry about that. I do plan on doing future quiz videos in the post-GvG world, but that may take a bit of time to get acclimated to the true value of potential arena cards. So moving on, my second and final loss came against a warrior. In the mulligan phase, I had a mix of 4 and 5 drops. With the coin, it wasn't completely insane to keep a Blessing of Kings and an Ogre Magi, but I felt like it was still worth it to mulligan for an early drop since it would likely be that I'd draw Blessing of Kings later anyways. What I get in return is serviceable. At least there's a 2 and a 3 drop, so with this deck I can't complain too much. On turn 1, I had the option to coin out the Haunted Creeper, but with nothing to follow it up and a relatively high likelihood the warrior may have a Fiery War Axe, I didn't think it was worth being left without a follow-up play better than a dude. I'm content to wait. Turn 2, the opponent playing a 2-3 is very strong against Haunted Creeper since it's less likely I'll be able to get value from it. Still, I don't think it's mandatory for me to coin out a 3-drop here, especially with Questing Adventurer in my hand. The hope is to later questing into coin into Humility, or find some other way to buff the Adventurer up. Turn 3, a Frothing Berserker on board when I don't really have an answer is very frightening. The Knife Juggler simply trades with the Raider or gets killed by the Frothing, and I don't want to coin out the Brewmaster since it would bring my Haunted Creeper back to my hand. I am left with Ironfur Grizzly, which at least on the board appears to trade favorably with the Raider, and should slow the Frothing down enough to give my Creeper a chance to finish it off. Turn 4. Shattered Sun Cleric shows why it's a strong pick, since the buffed Raider is now able to trade with the Grizzly and survive. I now have a lot of threats on the board, and each minion I'm forced to clean up is 1 more buff to the Frothing Berserker. Since I can't really deal with the Frothing and Humility won't hold it down for very long, I decide to play the Knife Juggler and see if I can get a few lucky knives out to clear the other minions surrounding the Frothing. This doesn't work particularly well since I missed the knife on the Shattered Sun, but at least I have a lot of minions on the board that might help ping away against the Frothing. Another completely viable play that may have been even better was if I had played the Questing and then coined out the Knife Juggler, afterwards running my Haunted Creeper into the 3-1 and hope for 2 lucky shots on the Shattered Sun. This play would have given me a 4-4, a 3-2, and 2 1-1s on the board, while giving just a slightly worse chance at clearing the Shattered Sun Cleric. Plus, the Questing would have been enough of a threat that the warrior might have considered trading with the Frothing. In retrospect, I think this would have been a slightly stronger play than the one that I had made. Turn 5. Fen Creeper puts up a roadblock, and meanwhile the Frothing is able to smash me in the face. The situation looks grim right now, however the Blessing of Kings comes at a great time. I'm able to clear the Fen Creeper and still have mana to temporarily reduce the Frothing's damage with Humility. The Frothing had to be dealt with this turn, so I think this play was probably the best I could have made. Turn 6. Death's Bite ruins my board and I'm once again in a bad spot. Drawing the Stormwind Knight was very useful though, since it finally gives me a chance to clear the warrior's board. The downside, however, is the Death's Bite is staring me in the face, and I don't really have any way to combine the knight with other useful plays. If the weapon wasn't there, I would have gladly played the Questing Adventurer and then coined out the Stormwind Knight, but that would have left me a 4/4 questing that dies the Death's Bite anyways, and the Stormwind Knight is already doomed due to its 1 HP remaining. Because of this reason, I'm forced to simply summon a dude, knowing my board will be cleared at next turn all over again. Turn 7. As feared, the Death's Bite is able to clear my board, but worse than that, my opponent is able to enrage a Tauren warrior with the Death Rattle. I'm stuck in a tricky spot. On the one hand, I could bring out the Guardian of Kings, but with such low life, a single big minion is easy to go around and push face damage against. Instead, I decide to play the Questing and the Sludge Belcher with the hope that the Tauren warrior dies, and the Yeti is delayed long enough so that I can possibly trade the Questing and heal it back up with the Darkscale Healer the following turn. If I'm going to turn the game around, it's going to be here. Turn 8. Cultmaster did work, drawing a Crazed Alchemist to get through the Belcher taunt, and clearing my board once more. I'm again facing near certain death and opt to bring out the Darkscaler as well as a dude, since the Darkscaler serves the same purpose as the Guardian with this board state. And again, I want to get other bodies on the board to help with incidental damage. Now, we pray. Turn 9. I survive for one more turn. But what sort of life will this be? At the very least I can clear the Cultmaster, but now I'm staring down a Stormwind champion. Guardian of Kings theoretically allows me to survive one more turn with 1 HP, but I'm dead to pretty much anything. Turns out that anything comes in the form of an Arcanite Reaper, so I take my second loss. But that's okay, because I get to exact my revenge on 8 enemies in a row. Now to see my final win in all its glory. In the mulligan stage I have a 2-drop, so I'm happy to keep that, but figure I should send the rest back for a 3-drop. I have 3 Blessing of Kings, so I'm fine sending it back right now since it's somewhat likely I'll see another one soon. I received no 3-drops in return, but I do get my single Consecration, which may come in hand. Turn 2, my opponent begins with one of the most terrifying openers you can get. Not 1, but 2 1-drops, both of which can make short work of my puny Haunted Creeper. All I can do right now is Haunted Creeper and hope. Turn 3, the Warlock has a 2-drop as well, so I'm ridiculously behind on the board, and what's worse, my Haunted Creeper can be eaten up by the 3 minions while they survive. Time to put my faith in a turn 4 Consecration. I end up shielding the Knife Juggler because it's still a high priority threat my opponent wants to deal with, and they might trade 2 of the minions on the board for it. If they instead decide to clear the Creeper, they take 2 points of knife damage. Turn 4. The good news is the Knife Juggler draws out a Mortal Coil and a minion trade. The bad news is the Blood Imp buffs the Flame Imp, which prevents me from pulling off a clean Consecration. I don't want to consecrate while leaving the board uncleared, so I decided to play the Silvermoon Guardian, which works well as a possible 2-for-1 with the current board state. Turn 5. I am fortunate the Warlock doesn't have a turn 4 play, but the Young Priestess and Blood Imp are getting a bit too dangerous with the potential to tilt trades in the Warlock's favor. Even though this is off curve, I felt it was a great time to consecrate and clear the board while retaining presence of my own. I've successfully survived the early game against the Warlock with a hot start, so things are now looking good. Turn 6. A turn 5 tap and a ghoul. My opponent is either running out of steam or he has a bunch of infernals in hand. I'm okay losing my 2 creeper minions and am able to utilize all my mana to add to the board. The downside is I open myself up somewhat to a Dread Infernal, but I also have a great follow-up with Blessing of Kings in hand, so I'm okay losing the remainder of the Guardian and the Worgen if that's what he has. Turn 7. No Dread Infernal was dropped, and now it's my turn to pile on with board position. I bless the Worgen because I don't want to put too many buffs on one target where silence might wreck me, and ideally I plan to bring the Guardian back later with the Brewmaster, so I don't want to lose the extra attack by buffing that. Things are looking up. Turn 8. Another Belcher, but I have a Humility and the board to make short work of it anyways. I decide it's worth clearing his board to prevent Shadowflame shenanigans and instead bring out a few more 1/1 recruits. Lethal is threatened for next turn. Turn 9. My opponent puts himself in a position where he can survive with 1 HP, but that's a pretty doomed state anyways with the board I have, and I top deck an Argent Protector anyways. Victory is complete! Hooray! 12 wins! Time to open up my rewards! A bunch of gold and 2 packs. MrShine is a happy man. But wait, he's about to become even happier. For what should appear in the second pack? But 2 legendary cards. I already have a Van Cleef, but the Ysera makes me quite happy should I decide to add it to a control deck. Yes indeed, this was a great way to cap off the final hero in my Arena Quiz series. I hope you enjoyed watching and stay tuned in the future. In addition to new Goblins vs Gnomes arena runs and some new deck brewing, I also plan on making videos geared towards the newer Hearthstone players out there with some basic gameplay tutorials. On the more advanced side of things, I also have some plans in the works with other Infinite Arena players to make videos where both sides are spliced together so that you can see Arena insight from multiple perspectives. Hopefully you're gripping the edge of your seat, but production is still in the works, so you'll have to be a little patient. Well, that's it for today. Please like and subscribe for more if you enjoyed this video. As always, I've been MrShine, and I'll see you next time.